Continuing to Episode 9, many warriors gathered in Babylon. Mercenaries fought recklessly, those with grudges against holy knights, even former holy knights. Greed mentioned that as long as one is strong, any mistake would be forgiven. That's the rule in Babylon. Fate felt that the place was perfect for him as he could hunt monsters to his heart's content. Elsewhere, Roxy was welcomed by a group of holy knights led by Northen Alester. She expressed that working under Roxy's command, who belonged to one of the 5 major families, was an honor for her. Northen, a holy knight maintaining order in Babylon after Roxy's father's demise, apologized to Roxy for not being able to do anything for her father in his final moments. Roxy explained that she came there to continue her father's determination, wanting to collaborate to prevent monster invasions from Gallia and protect the people. Northen agreed, and they shook hands. Miria felt jealous, seeing Northen, who she thought looked strange when gazing at Roxy and shaking hands with her. Miria planned to save Roxy, but luckily, Mugen stopped her from advancing, warning her that her head could be severed if she fought against a holy knight. Back to Fate, who was currently walking and complaining about the high cost of living in Babylon. To stay for a day, he had to spend 10 gold coins, and for breakfast, he had to pay 1 gold coin. Then, in the middle of the street, Greed instructed Fate to stop and look at a shop's display where there was a scabbard that Greed thought would suit him. When Fate saw the scabbard, he thought it must be very expensive. As they were still browsing, a man suddenly came out of the shop and was impressed by Fate's attire. He could tell that the bird marks on Fate's robe were not ordinary but caused by a fireball or something even hotter. Fate was surprised that the man could discern that. Greed saw potential in the man and found his work trustworthy. Greed immediately ordered Fate to buy the scabbard from him. Fate asked about the price of the scabbard in the display, but the man said it was not for sale, it was just for show. He offered to make a scabbard tailored to Fate's sword. Fate then showed his sword to the man. Inside the shop, the man examined Fate's sword and mentioned that he had never seen a sword like it before. Greed proudly acknowledged that only a few people knew about it, emphasizing its undeniable greatness. After analyzing the sword, the man then stated that a scabbard suitable for such a high-class sword would cost at least 500 gold coins. Instantly, Fate was shocked to hear this and hastily ran out of the store, declaring that he wouldn't buy the scabbard. Fate complained again, expressing disbelief at the unexpectedly high price. He argued that it was more important to focus on surviving first, considering the high cost of living in the area. He decided to go hunt monsters for rewards. Outside the gate, Fate encountered a group of male warriors also heading out to hunt monsters. They offered him a partnership in defeating monsters, but Fate declined. Upon hearing Fate's response, one of the warriors assumed that Fate was a former holy knight, daring to hunt monsters alone. He apologized for not realizing it earlier, judging from Fate's worn appearance and unintentionally underestimating him. Greed then argued that if appearance mattered, Fate might not have to deal with those warriors if he looked more presentable. Consequently, Fate decided to improve his appearance, planning to hunt monsters to earn a substantial amount of money. Long story short, Fate arrived in a desolate area near Gallia. He sensed a strong, unpleasant odor, and Greed explained that it was due to many dead monsters scattered everywhere. Additionally, there were airborne particles from slightly poisonous moss. Greed advised Fate not to inhale it too often, emphasizing that Gallia was like that. Not far away, a horde of orcs, approximately 50 in number, was seen running toward them. Greed mentioned that orcs were intelligent, so they would attack simultaneously, suggesting that Fate should use human combat strategies. Understanding this, Fate prepared to employ the techniques he learned from Aaron. However, as Fate was about to confront the orcs, a group of warriors rushed past him to engage the orcs that Fate was planning to defeat. Fate stopped and allowed the warriors to claim their prey. Greed was displeased with this and urged Fate to proceed, as what the warriors did was disrespectful. Fortunately, not far from there, another horde of around 400 orcs was running towards them. Fate and Greed were thankful for this opportunity and prepared to eliminate the orcs. Fate sprinted toward the orc horde, and upon seeing him, the orcs shot fire arrows from a distance. Greed transformed into his level 3 form, a shield easily deflecting the orcs' attacks. Greed proudly declared that physical and magical attacks had no effect on him. Although Fate was initially confused about what to do, Greed instructed him to charge the orc horde, promising to demonstrate the shield's capabilities. With confidence, Fate advanced, and one by one, the orcs struck by the shield fell to the ground, instantly defeated. Greed explained that the technique required high physical strength, something Fate now possessed. In a blink of an eye, Fate managed to defeat the horde of 400 orcs. However, he was puzzled because his gluttony skill did not react. Fate speculated that since his training with Aaron, he had gained control over the skill. Fate then collected the orc ears to sell in the city. Upon reaching the sales location, everyone was impressed as Fate brought in a large number of orc ears. However, one person confronted Fate, accusing him of stealing his prey. The man attempted to snatch a bag of orc ears from Fate, but Fate intervened. Despite being warned, the man persisted, and Fate ended up beating him. The nearby group of warriors was provoked and began attacking Fate. Fate easily defeated them all. In the end, Fate continued his transactions and earned 100 gold coins from his hunting expedition. Unexpectedly, Roxy entered the room and found chaos inside. She accused Fate of causing the disturbance. Fate was, of course, surprised to see Roxy, but luckily he still wore his mask, preventing Roxy from recognizing him. After a brief interrogation, Roxy realized that Fate was not at fault. They were the ones who attacked him, and he was merely defending himself. Roxy wisely forgave Fate and the people there. Memel seemed upset with Fate, finding him disrespectful for not listening to what Roxy said. She thought Fate was impolite for not removing his mask while speaking to Roxy. Once again, Roxy understood this, acknowledging that a mask was also a warrior's equipment. Roxy then gave advice to Fate, encouraging him to resolve issues peacefully and paying attention to his appearance. Those words pierced Fate's heart, and he ran away from Roxy. Walking dejectedly, Fate thought that Roxy must hate him. However, for Greed, it was much better than Fate's true identity being revealed. Greed then mentioned that Roxy also suggested that Fate pay attention to his appearance and urged him to buy a sword sheath. Of course, Fate couldn't afford it due to its high price. At that moment, a man greeted Fate. He was the weapons shopkeeper Fate had visited earlier. He had heard about Fate defeating the thugs at the exchange place and offered to provide battle gear from his store. He introduced himself as Jade Strayos, a craftsman who had opened his shop 3 months ago. Jade wanted Fate to fight using his equipment as a promotional material. Delighted, Fate accepted the offer, and Jade outfitted him with clothes and battle gear. Fate praised the outfit for looking very cool. Unexpectedly, Jade still asked Fate to pay 80 gold coins for the equipment. Fate and Greed were shocked, thinking it would be free. Seeing Fate's expression, Jade then cut the price in half, making it 40 gold coins. Fate returned from the store, complaining about how the money he had just gathered vanished instantly. Walking with an empty stomach, Fate noticed a bustling shop. In front of the shop, many men gathered, and from inside, a beautiful woman waved to them. When the woman looked at Fate, he felt mesmerized, unable to take his eyes off her. Fate began to suspect something, and Greed could already guess what it was. Suddenly, the woman approached Fate, saying that she had been waiting for him. Fate was surprised because he wore a mask, yet the woman knew his true identity and even his real name. The woman confirmed Fate's suspicion. She was indeed the owner of the skills of deadly sin. She introduced herself as Heiress of Lust. They both entered her room, and Heiress offered a drink to Fate. Heiress asked Fate to remove his mask because she wanted to see his face more clearly. Fate, still entranced, reflexively averted his gaze from Heiress. Heiress mentioned that sometimes she couldn't control her charm, a characteristic of the lust skill. Anyone affected by it would instantly fall madly in love. Fate then asked why Heiress had said she was waiting for him earlier. Heiress replied that she had always been observing Fate, even when he was still in the capital. Heiress had initially wanted to meet Fate when his skill first awakened but reconsidered, thinking that Fate would encounter Greed. Hearing Heiress mention Greed, Fate asked if she also knew Mine. Heiress admitted not knowing Mine well as she was a second generation and had limited knowledge of the first generation. Heiress thanked Fate for defeating Haniel, considering him a troublesome opponent. Fate was surprised that Heiress seemed to know everything. Heiress denied it, stating she didn't know who brought the cocoon there, as Chimera was initially in the capital of Gallia. She also mentioned that there should still be a few left. If they reached their perfect form, it would be challenging, especially since the Holy Knights were currently in a weakened state. In a serious tone, Heiress continued her speech. She stated that she had another identity aside from being the owner of the skills of deadly sin, that of a guardian of the kingdom. She prioritized the interests of the nation over personal matters, specifically focusing on the future of the kingdom. Despite enduring significant losses in the present, she desired the kingdom to prosper in 500 or 1,000 years to come. Fate didn't quite grasp Heiress's words. Then, Heiress immediately mentioned the name Roxy Hark, stating that she must die on the soil of Gallia. Naturally, this infuriated Fate. Heiress went on to say that hatred would arise when monsters were defeated. Hatred would never completely disappear. Those feelings would accumulate over the years, giving birth to the crowned monsters. The phenomenon of hatred also occurred in humans. Tyranny, discrimination, and suffering caused by the Holy Knight would incessantly accumulate. The culmination would be the death of the only Holy Knight revered by everyone, Roxy Hart. The immense hatred surrounding her death would absorb all accumulated resentment, becoming a sacrifice for the creation of a new, powerful human. Then, supporters of the kingdom with extraordinary skills would be born. Eris claimed that Roxy's death would lead the kingdom in a better direction. Fate became extremely angry, believing that, according to him, nothing good would happen after her death. Fate walked away from Eris. Eris, in a soft tone, said that her plan had been set in motion and no one could stop it. Walking away in frustration, Fate declared that he didn't care about anyone or their plans, and whoever the opponent was, he swore to protect Roxy.